Good morning, all of you. And this is time that we discuss Indian literature in English. And Indian literature in English is actually the body of literature that is written in English language by the Indians, either written in English language or translated into English language. The works that are written in English by the Indians and the works that are translated into English by the Indians are considered as Indian literature. And when we get into Indian literature, we come to find the earliest writers of English literature in India. The Indian writers who produced literature in the English language. And we come to find the important names are that of Prasad Ghosh. And there is also the other important writer, Chandra Dutt. And Prasad Ghosh was a poet who started a magazine from Calcutta. He was Bengali and he started a magazine from Calcutta called Hindu Intelligencer. Prasad Ghosh was born in 1809 and he died in 1873. And he is regarded as one of the earliest Indian writers writing in English language. He was born in Bengal and from Calcutta he produced a magazine called Hindu Intelligencer. And he wrote poems like The Boatman's Song to Ganga. He was a poet, and one of his popular poems is called The Boatman's Song to Ganga. Ganga is the sacred river of India, and a boatman is found making a song addressed to Ganga. And this is one of the earliest poems written in English language by Prasad Ghosh. And there is also another popular writer called Chandra Dutt. And Chandra Dutt was born in Bengal. He was also Bengali, and most of the writers of Indian English literature belong to Bengal. Prasad Ghosh was also Bengali, and Chandra Dutt was also a Bengali. And he was the first writer of fiction. And Sochi wrote under two pseudonyms also. Chandra Dutt was born in 1834 and died in 1885. Prasad Ghosh and Chandra Dutt were close contemporaries. Both lived in the same time and both were friends also. And Chandra Dutt produced poems, essays, and crude models of fiction also, produced tales also, and he used two pen names, pseudonyms. One was J.A.G. Barton. It was the one pen name adopted by him, Barton, B-A-R-T-O-N, J.A.G. Barton. And he also adopted another pen name, Horatio Bickerstaff. And the name Bickerstaff is familiar for this because Isaac Bickerstaff was a pen name adopted by Jonathan Swift, and it was also used in the works of Steele, Richard Steele. Richard Steele also used the pen name Isaac Bickerstaff. And it was Jonathan Swift who used the pen name Isaac Bickerstaff in the beginning. And Chandra Dutt adopted a pen name Horatio Bickerstaff. In the case of Swift and Steele, it was Isaac Bickerstaff. And Chandra Dutt adopted the pen name Horatio Bickerstaff. And he produced a few poems, essays, like The Great Wars of India India past and present, and the wild tribes of India. He had produced a long essay entitled The Wild Tribes of India. And for this book, he adopted the pen name Bickerstaff. He actually wanted to hide his name. And he brought out a collection of poems, essays and tales entitled Stray Leaves. S-T-R-A-Y, Stray Leaves. It was a collection of poems, essays and tales. And these two names that we have to remember, Prasad Ghosh, a poet who was born in Bengal, known for his poem The Boatman's Song to Ganga, and brought out a magazine from Calcutta called Hindu Intelligencer. And the other important name is that of Chandra Dutt, and he is regarded as the first writer of fiction, but he produced a crude type of fiction. And he has adopted two pen names. One is J.A.G. Barton, and the other is Horatio Bickerstaff. And he has got a few essays and poems, tales also. And there are the books like The Great Wars of India, India Past and Present, and The Wild Tribes of India. And he has got a collection of poems, essays and tales called Stray Leaves. And when we discuss these two people, we come to find that there is a very popular novelist called Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyaya or Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. And Chatterjee is popular for his song, the Indian national song Vande Mataram. It was Bankim Chandra Chatterjee who produced the Indian national song Vande Mataram. And he was also the writer of the first English novel in India. And he had produced the first English novel in India. And it was asked by UGC very recently. And the novel was called Rajmohan's Wife. Rajmohan's Wife. And it was a novel he produced in 1864. And remember always, the first novel was written by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, the writer of the Indian national song Vande Mataram. And he produced the novel in 1864 and published it in a weekly periodical called The Indian Field. So he published the novel in a weekly periodical, and the periodical was called The Indian Field by Kishori Chandra Mitra. Kishori Chandra Mitra was the publisher of the magazine, and he produced the novel and published the novel through that magazine in a serial format. And the book was produced in book form only in 1935. So it took many years for the novel to be published in book form. Actually, the story revolves around the character of Rajmohan's wife. And Rajmohan is a drunkard and villainous husband. And he is married to Mandagini. 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 And Mandagini is actually Rajmohan's wife. And the UGC question was, Rajmohan's wife was a novel written by whom? It was the question asked by UGC. And the answer was Bankim Chandra Chatterjee or Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyaya. Both the same name. Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyaya or Chatterjee. Rajmohan's wife. Actually, the story is centered around the character of Mandagini. And Mandagini is the wife of Rajmohan. And Rajmohan got married with Mandagini when she was very young and brought her to his house, ill-treated her. tormented her, assaulted her physically, and didn't permit her to go out of the house, kept her under lock and key. But when Mandakini got freedom to go out to fetch water from the outside well, she came into friendship with the people in the locality, and she wanted to become a free-minded lady, to have social relations. And Rajmohan, a drunkard and a villainous man, used it to torment Mandakini. So in the book we come to find Rajmohan threatening Mandakini that he would kick her to death. So in the book we come to find Rajmohan threatening Mandakini, frightening her, saying that he would kick her to death. And Mandakini fell in love with the husband of her sister, brother-in-law, and he is named Madhav. And Madhav is actually the protagonist of the novel. And Madhav is an educated man, a free-spirited man, and interested in the freedom of India. And when we come to find the literary works before the independence, we come to find that there is always the nationalistic feelings. And the literary works are oriented to inspire the people to join for the fight against the colonization, against the British Empire. And Madhav was a free-spirited and a patriotic and nationalistic young man. He was also young, only 22 years. And she falls in love with Madhav, but the love never becomes materialized. At the end it is identified that there has been a secret relation between Madhav and Mandakini. Mandakini is sent home to her father's house, and she had to face an early death. And this novel was written as a tragedy, and the novel is called Rajmohan's Wife, a History. Rajmohan's Wife, a History. And the year 1864. And the book form arrived in 1935. And we have to remember always that the first novel was Rajmohan's Wife, written by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. And Bankim Chandra Chatterjee actually produced the national song of India called Vande Mataram. And it was actually, he was inspired to write the Vande Mataram while writing his novel, his next novel, the other novel, entitled Ananda Math, Ananda Math, Anandamath, Ananda Math, Ananda Matha, it is Ananda Matha, the Abbey of Bliss. Ananda Math is actually the Abbey of the Church of Bliss, it is to be translated. And this novel was produced by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee in 1882. And the novel actually speaks about the sannyasi army, the army of the Hindu ascetics. So it was at the time there were the Hindu ascetics fighting against the British force. And the subject of Anandamath, translated as the Abbey of Bliss, is about the sannyasi revolt against the British force. And the book actually calls for the rise of Indian nationalism. And the book actually calls the people to join, to fight for the freedom of India. And it is in this book he gets the inspiration for his song Vande Mataram. And very interestingly, the song Vande Mataram was put into music by Tagore. It was Rabindranath Tagore who puts Vande Mataram into music. And remember, Vande Mataram is associated with Bankim Chandra Chatterjee's novel Anand Mad. Anand Mad was a novel written in 1882 speaking about the sannyasi revolt, the Indian ascetics revolt against the British force. And it was this book that inspired him to write the popular song Vande Mataram. And Vande Mataram has been accepted as the Indian national song. But the Indian national anthem was produced by Tagore, and the Indian national song Vande Mataram was produced by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. And it was Bankim Chandra Chatterjee who produced the first English novel in India, and it is called Rajmohan's Wife. And it was the question asked by UGC, and remember always this. And after that, we come to find the important writers of Indian English literature, starting with Toru Dutt. And from Toru Dutt also, UGC used to ask questions. And Toru Dutt was born in Bengal, and her father and family turned to become Christians. When Toru was only 6 years, the family converted to Christianity and went to England, France, and various European countries. And she came to learn French and English language at a young age. And she remained in France and England. So during her childhood and youth, and later returned to India and produced a few literary works, and became dead when she was only 21 years. And she is compared with John Keats for her early death. She died when she was only 21. And she wrote in English and French language. And she produced an English novel as well as a French novel. Bianca, or the Young Spanish Maiden, was one novel produced by her in English. She produced an English novel, Bianca, or the Young Spanish Maiden, and it was produced in 1878. She also produced a French novel, and it was called Le Journal de Mademoiselle d'Arves. So it is the novel telling the story of a madam. Mademoiselle is Madame d'Arves, and it is written in the French language. And this novel remained incomplete. And after all, she produced a collection of poems, and it was called A Sheaf, S-H-E-A-F, sheaf, gleaned in French fields. A sheaf gleaned in French fields, collection of English poetry, and that was produced during her lifetime, published also during her lifetime. It was published in the year of her death, 1877. She wrote the poems during 1876 and published it in a book form in 1877. And these are the three important contributions of Toru Dutt. Toru Dutt was born in Bengal. Her family converted to Christianity, and she went to live in England, France, and Germany. And she returned to India and started writing literature based on the Hindustani folk tales. And she has also got a last collection. It is called Ancient Ballads and Legends of Hindustan. And she had produced a collection called Ancient Ballads and Legends of Hindustan. But it could be published only after her death in 1882. And the famous English critic and poet Edmund Ghosh wrote an introduction. It was Ghosh who wrote an introduction to this collection when it was published in 1882. Toru Dutt was an Indian poet who wrote in English and French. And she had only a very short life. She died at the age of 21, and for her early death she is compared to John Keats. And while studying in England, she was attracted to the world of literature, and she produced 2 novels, one novel in English and the other novel in French. And the English novel was called Bianca, or the Young Spanish Maiden, and it was produced in 1878, published in 1878. And the next in French language, Lee Journal, D. Modamasselli, D. Arvers. So the story of Madame D. Arvers, and it was written in French and published posthumously in 1879. And she has got a collection of poems called A Sheaf Gleaned in French Fields, and it's a collection of poems written by her. And she is very popularly known for her poem, Our Casuarina Tree. And very recently, UGC asked one question to identify the author of the poem, Our Casuarina Tree. It was a direct question asked by UGC. Our Casuarina Tree is a popular poem written by an Indian poet, and identify the name of the poet. Toru Dutt produced the poem, Our Casuarina Tree. And it is one of her very popular poems, and it speaks about her happy childhood days in Calcutta. And in the first part of the poem, she describes the tree trailed by a keeper. Actually, it's a tall tree, Casuarina tree. And it is Chatterjee called in Malayalam. Chatterjee, Casuarina. And in the beginning, she discusses the tree, speaking about the tree trailed by a creeper, and there has been a creeper, a vine creeper, creeping through the tree like a huge python. Like a huge python, a viper is found creeping up to the top of the tree. And in some occasions, there are flowers found in the creeper. And in Casuarina tree, we don't find any kind of flowers. And there is a creeper trailing through the tree, and in some occasions there are red flowers found in the tree, because in the creeper there are the flowers. The tree sometimes wore a scarf, and it was like wearing a scarf. It was like a lady wearing a scarf. The climbing of the viper through the tree is compared to a lady wearing a scarf with red flowers on the creeper. And the